Hey everyone, I hope you've had a fantastic week. On this week's episode of The Weekender, you have the chance to win the new Dystopian Wars 2-player starter set, Hunt for the Prometheus. This is a brand new big box set coming from Warcradle Studios, and it's got everything you and a mate need to have some epic naval battles in an alternative late 19th century called the Dystopian Age. Make sure you stay tuned to later in the show when Warren's going to be taking his first look through the new box set. And if you want to be in with a chance of winning this, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and get a comment in down below. Right, peeps? The weekend starts now. Weekender time. I'm Lloyd, and of course I'm joined by the Tasty Boys, Ben and Jerry.
Hello.
Hello.
Did you know somebody has made a Tasty Boys t-shirt?
Oh yeah.
They have.
Catson, hashtag Tasty Boys for the win.
We will have to make our own merch at some point. This will have to be a thing.
That's it. The Tasty Boy t-shirt. Speaking of things you can buy, let's get stuck in with this week's show, and let's start with Indie of the Week. We looked at them last week. It was Brigade Models, wasn't it? And then we said it might be a two-parter, so we thought, what the heck? Let's come back and let's do the two-parter.
Yeah, there's literally too much to cover in only one show with Brigade Models. There may be too much to cover in only two shows, but we're stopping after this one, so anything we don't look at here that you go, oh, but why did you not click on that? You've got the links. Go right ahead. We have to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah, so let's get stuck in. There's loads of links here, but we've picked out a couple of sections. So I'm going to take us straight into our first section that we've selected, which is Hammer Slammers.
Hammer, as you say, Slammers. So this is based on a late 70s or early 80s sci-fi novel called Hammer Slammers about a mercenary tank company. And they've expanded upon that. So we've got this whole game world. So it's small scale. I think it's 15 mil. If memory serves.
It looks about 15 mil from the images and stuff.
Yeah. So if you want to get stuck into some futuristic, it can be played in 6 as well. Oh, great! Well, there you go. If you want to, start throwing Team Yankee and World War II up against the Hammer Slammers, then feel free.
So let's look at the 15 mil stuff.
Yeah, the book itself is a set of short stories, and each chapter is a different person in the regiment, and it explains what's going on and where they come from, because they start off being formed on a planet and then turning into a mercenary company, sort of for hire.
Not this book, though. This is the rule book.
No, this is the rule book. But there was a lot of world building, even though it's a very short book. After every chapter, there was like an interlude chapter where there'd be like a little short essay about the world of Hammer Slammers, or the religion, or the weaponry, or the tank companies. You're finding dead links, are you? I'm
just not going to click anything because they're all. There's no pictures.
I think you just stay on this page. I think.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Really the best
So the idea behind the tank regiments of Hammer Slammers is they are unique in that they don't use treads. They're all hover tanks. Hover tanks are better for crossing terrain and for not setting off mines.
Will there be a picture? Oh, there is a picture.
Oh, look at you.
There we go.
So it doesn't have to be used for Hammer Slammers, although obviously that's part and parcel of what they're geared towards. But if you are planning on doing any sort of sci-fi or near future wars, there's an awful lot of stuff in there that can be used to garnish your tables. And what a wacky looking troop they are.
They remind me of the kind of tanks and vehicles you'd see in late 90s, early 2000 video games. Like these are the kind of things that you would have seen in those kind of those style of games, I think.
Kind of thing I would have seen from Jerry Anderson.
Yes.
I can imagine the Terrorhawks or Fireball XL5 or any of those running up against these people. Or indeed Mass Crusaders. And as is their one, there are multiple nationalities and units with a distinct look throughout. So you've got a a very broad scope of generic fantasy if you're not planning on using them for Hammer Slammers. If you just want to have your own setting, or if you want to add them to a different game, like Star Grunts is particularly good for 15mm sci-fi, then there's a lot in here that has a distinctive look to it. I love those buildings on a completely separate note, which just scream Star Wars.
Yeah,
I feel a Binary Sunset coming on there.
You're not lacking for content when it comes to the different factions then, in that regard, so.
No, at no point have Brigade Models ever look at something and think, you know what, we could get away with half a dozen models here. 24 factions with a ton of stuff in each one, because you want to be able to cover all the bases, so to speak, and they really do that.
I like that you've got, well, from the look of it anyway, it looks like there's a nice combined arms kind of feel to the range as well. So you've not just got tanks. You've got the tanks, you've got the infantry, you've got support vehicles and that kind of thing as well. So on that regard as well, like fairly well furnished for
well, the
factions too. So.
The world itself and the Hammer Slammers regiment was based on the author was in.
This is class. Look, going to war on Sinclairs.
Sinclair C5s. So what's the other? Oh, their jet skis. Their jet skis have just come up on the beach. But yeah, the author was in Vietnam in a tank company, so he based Hammer Slammers on it. So that even though it's sci-fi and it's weird hover tanks, there is a distinct real world feel to the militaries and how they operate.
That's cool. Yeah.
So you've got that going on, and like I say, there is a preponderancy of stuff that you can just get lost in, depending on how you want to play it.
There's stacks of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're not going to go lacking. You're not going to be lacking in anything. And they all have that. They look like the sort of the more modern tanks from the sort of 60s, 70s onwards. Then sort of sci-fi'd up.
Yeah.
So it's not too outlandish, and there's still wheeled vehicles in there. If people want to do donuts about the place, or they want to hop on their floating jet skis, they can do that too.
Cool.
Very
right.
cool.
So we move on to the next section then, because we've got a few to cover here.
Yeah. Where do you want to go next? Do you want to stay with the small or go to big?
We're going to go here.
Going to go to the small. So RNF, which is a ship combat in the sky steampunk style game.
Yeah.
Called Imperial Skies. And again, they have dozens, I think it's safe to say, dozens of nations. Every nation that could exist is there.
I'm fairly sure I've seen this game played multiple times in big participation events at like Salute and stuff.
That sort of thing, yeah. Yeah, it's a popular one. Because
let me bring up the YouTube video.
You have all the fun of naval combat, but in the air. So you can have it chugging along quite happily. And again, the background for Imperial Skies is richly developed. So Scandinavian, as I always call them, are no longer individual Viking countries just up there wearing woolly jumpers. They've actually unified in the same way as the United Kingdom and have their own union flag based on Norway, Sweden, and Denmark combined. And so
here, just before here is an overview video, and if you go to Rotten Lead on YouTube, you'll be able to find that.
Yeah, but it's not that it's unheard of as far as sort of 19th century flying steampunk games go. But it's a really nice comprehensive look at if they had taken to the skies at that period in time, what would we be looking at? Pre World War One and the chopping up of Europe, when you had Turkey as a power, and Argentina was still strong in South America, and all of these militaristic 19th century powers, and they all have their own distinct look. This one, I imagine, probably if people are going to get into it, Imperial Skies is probably the way to go. There are other games out there. Finding them is going to be the problem. But it offers interesting an interesting idea for a game, and also a direction to take your games in. Playing Flying Steampunk, getting the Grand Imperial Japanese fleet and getting them out there.
I'm just going to say as well, this looks to be the range where maybe in many months ago we looked at things with telescopic stands.
Yeah.
Yes.
That go up and down.
Don't have to be played with that. No.
Yeah.
We have been looking at them chucking along on the crest of a wave, or rather above the crest of a wave. But there's a companion game to RNF, which is land-based, and it's land ironclads. So you can play your steampunk floating ships, or you can start breaking out massive land trains to do huge ground engagements. They haven't got the full spread yet. Mm-hmm. I imagine that's only a matter of time. They have to get there eventually. But having these, and this is the sort of madness of Hitler's idea of the Rat, the huge land cruiser that could never be built. And they've gone, yeah, that's only because you weren't thinking early enough. Mr. Adolf, sir, if you'd done this 30 years, 40 years earlier than having your land ships, there's the little Matilda-like Mark Is. So gives you an idea of the sort of scale you're looking at, because they are comparatively chunky for tanks. And then you've got these Titanic-looking fellows trucking along.
And the actual scale of this game, I was looking at when we were on the front page for this, matches the actual like gaming scale of RNF and Imperial Skies anyway. So you could have combined stuff going on, which is pretty awesome. So
if you can't actually play them on the same table, then you can have combined campaigns, or work out a way to combine them in some fashion. I do like the idea of a naval combat going on above the heads of these massive land ships. And occasionally somebody getting depth charged from the skies. It's a whole brave new world. The old days. When you take a twist to it. I don't know what Imperial Skies is based on. I don't know if it's based on a specific IP or property, or if it was just somebody went, what would be cool if we did steampunk ironclads in the sky, and then went from there. And somebody went, that all sounds fantastic.
Oh, we got like Walker-y type things too.
Yeah, proper tripods, and
the
then
Olympians,
and then some of the new BBC tripods with too many limbs. They clearly don't know what tri means. But those.
We got Darth Vader as well coming up. Here he is.
That looks more like one of the Terrorhawks balls. I'm trying to remember what they were called.
No idea. It was like K9's head or something.
It's amazing. But I really like these uniquely different games. Now, somebody has gone the wrong way, and they've put rigging on some of their 2 mil flying steampunk ships. And as we all know, rigging is madness and death.
I thought that was amazing. That was really cool.
Did you? Rather you than me, mate.
Definitely need to do it. Yeah.
Nope.
Well,
but they're just so out there.
If you're into the steampunk stuff, remember to stay tuned for our preview at Dystopian Wars new starter set, which is coming up later in the show. And then we'll have an unboxing of that in more detail next week. Moving on, the last part that we want to look at, and this by no means covers everything that's on this website, is Great War 28mm Belgians. Is it Belgians?
It is the Belgian army.
Bring on the Flemish.
small but perfectly formed in the grand scheme of things.
And they've got a rule book as well for something.
Through mud and the blood, yeah.
Two fat lardies?
Yeah, it's 2 fat lardies. So the Belgian army got a massive shoeing early days in World War One, as Germany just went through them because they were neutral and weren't expecting it. But they kept fighting until the very end of the war in 1918, and had gone from, I'm not sure how many they had by the time they got sort of pushed back, like 50,000 men left, and by the end of the war they were back up to 170,000. So even though they were occupied for all of the war, they still managed to recruit, train, rearm, and keep fighting.
That's crazy.
You've got to admire the Belgians.
Tenacity of them. Yeah.
Very, very much so. So they fought long and hard throughout the war. Obviously, great for skirmish games. If you do want to play larger, great war games, then it is a comprehensive amount of fellows in there. I was having a wee browse through to see you could potentially use some of them for Belgian Congo sort of colonial warfare. So if you're doing things like Men Who Would Be Kings style of skirmish games, but you will have to go in and do sort of head swaps and things on them, because most of them were wearing, if you don't want the great coats, but the uniforms were the same cut, although a lighter fabric, but then they were wearing pith helmets and the like, so you may require some changes there. Kepis may still be okay.
Are these dogs?
Dogs pulling a cart with a what looks like a Vickers on the back of it. Yeah, there was an awful lot of mud about.
If you've not got horses, yeah,
you do what you have to do.
Yeah.
I'm looking at these guys and thinking you could probably do an alternative guard army with these guys as well.
You probably could do.
Cool.
Oh yeah,
would work really nicely.
They have a different enough look. Obviously, they've got similar, the way their great coats and uniforms were cut are similar to the French, but they look distinctly different enough from Germans and Americans and British that you would often see that people would not immediately tweak where they've come from.
Oh, this is weird.
Lancers.
They are fancy hats.
Yeah,
they are. They're very similar to the Polish Lancers hats. That
Wow.
I'm trying to remember the square cap name. It has one. I never remember it, so I'm not going to try.
Good for keeping the rain off, I guess.
Oh yeah. It's all good, but it's everything is in there. Whether you need your infantry or mounted infantry or actual cavalry, even down to those modern newfangled bikes for getting people around. They're in there.
It reminds me very much, looking at this range, how close like the First World War is to all the stuff that was happening in the 1800s anyway. Like when you actually see, especially during the first portion of the First World War, how close a lot of their equipment and style of dress and actual means of warfare were to what people were doing towards the tail end of the 19th century. It's pretty interesting looking at all this stuff.
I don't know who said it, but somebody once said every army is equipped to fight the previous war.
Yeah.
And that's generally what happens. And then, this comes along and all of a sudden people are still fighting in that regimented style. And at the start of the war, they were wearing their lovely, by that stage, the British had moved out of scarlet. And the Germans were wearing their initial sort of field grey, but a lot of the others, the French were in that lovely pastel blue, and the Belgians here in the navies, and they still had that very regimented, almost parade ground feel. And then as the war went on, then they moved to a less easily spotted to be shot look. But then you hit the end of the First World War and then the start of the Second World War, and people are now thinking that it's all going to be trench warfare, and then that war is completely different. And so, yeah, the Belgians in particular, being a neutral country, were still very much a 18th century, 19th century sort of feel to them. They still felt like they were not kicking the bum off the Napoleonics, even though they're obviously 100 years hence from that. But
the other nice thing is, I think it reminds me again a little bit of sort of of World War II, and looking at gaming as people like the Polish, for example. Like obviously when you were saying at the start of this, like the Belgian they got run over, but they still kept fighting. Just like in World War II, the Polish got battered, but they put up a hell of a good fight, and they still kept on fighting in smaller groups throughout the rest of the war anyway as well. And it allows you to tell a little bit of a different story that takes you away from kind of the British and the Americans and the Germans and the French kind of thing. So
I like the casualties too.
Yeah, obviously they're not on every front. Some of the other armies are. So if you are going to play Belgians, you are going to be restricted in the areas they fought. But definitely an interesting force to take out onto the battlefield.
Very cool
and different. The amount of times where we often hear it said, it doesn't matter if somebody's playing bolt action, then 90% of the people will bring a German army. The same for Flames of War. You see the same armies over and over again, and it's nice to see the smaller nations I actually have a developed force to.
I had that in bolt action. I was playing it, and I was Me and my friend only just dived into it. I was playing as the Germans and he was playing as the Americans. And we got playing at the club, and this guy brought a Finnish force down, with like ski infantry and that kind of stuff. And we were like, this is so cool. Where did you get all this stuff? And it's like, he was like, it is taking me a very long time to find these.
I can imagine it would, yeah. So, a delightful range.
It really is, yeah. Very cool.
And it's always nice to see different things. So there's other bits and bobs. We've scratched the surface of Brigade Models. If anybody else wants to go swimming and diving through it.
Only just scratched. So that's brigademodels.co.uk. Right, chappies, we're going to move on. We're going to get stuck into that preview of the new Dystopian Wars starter set. Did you win one of our prizes? Find out on our prize claim center over at OnTableTop.com. Here we list all our previous prizes and those who have won. If you see your username, fill out the form to claim your prize. All prizes must be claimed within 30 days.
Dystopian Wars. Yes. Actually, tidbit for you. My first game of Dystopian Wars was actually against Ben. Way back in the day, in our first ever video together. We got Ben over to the studios, and me and him went through Dystopian Wars. Previously created by Neil Fawcett and crew at Spartan Games, but now under the ownership of War Cradle. And this is the cumulation of their work to create the ultimate two-player starter set. Now, remember, bit of disclosure here, the parent company that owns War Cradle also owns OnTableTop. So I haven't been asked to say anything nice or anything in particular whatsoever about this starter set, but I want to make sure that you're clear on that we do have a shared parent company. Right, let's crack it open and get a look. It's a big old box. I've always loved Dystopian Wars. I love the aesthetic of that. Like, Dystopian Wars was doing steampunk before steampunk was really a popular thing within our industry. And the guys at War Cradle have taken it and they're creating this whole world called the Dystopian Age, where Wild West Exodus, Dystopian Wars, and Lost Exodus, they're all kind of there taking place within this universe. So let's crack it open and get a look. So in the box, we're going to see 2 fleets, some tokens and gubbins, measuring rules and templates, dice and rules, and some card decks. So let's get stuck in and see just what it was like. So this is my first proper dig through the 2-player starter set. I was lucky enough, myself and some other community members, to get a sprue sent through. So I was able to see one of the plastic ships a few weeks back, which was interesting. But it's nice now to actually see an actual starter set, something that you and a mate can pick up and get stuck into this fleet game. Right, on the top, this is apparently the War Cradle template ruler set. Now, from what I can gather, don't quote me on it, but I did have a chat recently during a live stream during Blue Monday with Stu, one of the leads in War Cradle, and certainly the impression I got, and it may well be well known within the War Cradle community, is that they are standardizing, I think, all of their kind of like dystopian age games around the use of the same kind of templates and tokens and stuff like that. So there's going to be a standardization. So if you're a Wild West Exodus player, your gubbins and things like that will be the same that you would use in Dystopian Wars. So it comes apart. You have your overall template, you have your arcs, and then you have your actual measuring rule itself. And this clicks in there and it can extend further. We have a couple of bases, and then finally we are into the sprues. Now, as I said, I did get a chance to look at these sprues a few weeks back, and I really, really like them. I like the level of detail. First and foremost, we can talk about the detail. There's a superb level of detail on the actual ship hulls. But what I particularly like is I like the sprue layout. It's very efficient. There's plenty of stuff on there. And what's really interesting to me is you can build loads of different variants of these ships from the one sprue. So it looks to me like the design team behind it are trying to have as much forethought into these products as they can to give as much longevity and expandability as they can. So these are your sprues then for your ships. Let's continue looking at the models. As well as the plastic sprues, there's also some beautiful resin pieces. We need to check these out. So here's one of the resin ships. Just look at that. That is a beautiful piece of design, but probably just as importantly, maybe even more importantly, it's a beautiful piece of casting. It has turned out really, really nice. And you can start to get the sense of the scale of this game. You know, it's something I've always loved about Dystopian Wars is, you know, it takes the fleet battles and opens up so many possibilities, you know, of range and things like that. And, you know, naval battles are a tricky thing because in a naval battle, if you don't want to engage, you just don't engage. You know, they're fought a very specific kind of way. So the best naval games are naval games that are not entirely based in the real world, because then they encourage combat and fighting and the likes. So here are the other little additional pieces that we would clip out and we'll put onto that. Right, let's have a look at what else is in there. Let's check this one out. I think this is the same model. Nope, different one again. I want to make sure I don't mix these up because I'm going to have a go at building these. I've been waiting a long time for Dystopian Wars to reappear on the scene in any big way. So this is a real treat for myself and for Ben to finally see it re-emerge, resurface, you might say. And there's the last resin piece. So I'll pop that on there. And I believe that wee bit there can go in there like that. And it all just fits really nicely. Nice snug fit. And then I imagine that we can pull weapons from the plastic sprues to fill out these weapon areas. Right, let's see what else is in there. We have custom dice. Now, I quizzed Stu about the custom dice because we all know that custom dice, I don't think any of us more seasoned players in the hobby like custom dice just for the sake of custom dice. We are quite willing to accept custom dice if there's a very, very good reason for them to be there, but doing custom dice just for the sake of it is never really a preferable option because, you know, if you forget your dice or whatever, you know, you're scuppered. Stu assures me, and again, you can go and watch the video, that the custom dice are crucial to the mechanics of the game because they speed up gameplay massively. There is apparently a conversion table in there if you didn't have them, but he tells me that the custom dice speed up the gameplay massively on this. As well as that, we have couple of the decks of, I imagine that these are kind of like event cards. I won't know until I get my first game of it in. So we have 2 decks of that, 1 set per player, a set of dice per player, and then we're into some of the paper components. So before I get to this bit, we have some little pieces of terrain. If you call it terrain, I suppose they're like obstacles. So we have some icebergs that we can lay down to try and ensure that our movement, we have to think about it to some extent. And then we have what are called condition tokens. Now, the interesting thing about it is it actually explicitly says here, for use with Dystopian Wars, Lost World Exodus, and Wild West Exodus, and other dystopian age games. So that's part of that standardization route that they seem to be going down, which I think could be a very good thing because it allows you to get to grips with the IP that you're gaming in, and you're kind of, there's an efficiency to that, not only for a company that's producing them, but there's an efficiency for us as gamers as well, because you're not having to manage and take care of loads of different sets of gubbins and things like that. You have your one set, and then regardless of which aspect of the intellectual property of the universe you're playing, it's there for you. Then we get into the rules. I haven't had a chance to flick through it much, but there is a hefty old rule book to this. So if I have a quick look down through the contents of it, you can start to get to grips with the rules, and you can see like the rules are pretty much going to right through to about page 38. So there's a good chunk of that book is related to the rules. What will be interesting whenever I get a chance to try it is to see how the rule book leads me through the play of the game. Rule books are never an easy thing to get right, so it'll be interesting to see how they've done on that front. And then you get the Hunt for the Prometheus campaign. So this is a small booklet that is related to, this is the 2-player starter set, the Hunt for the Prometheus. So this is the booklet that relates to that. And this lays out your first battles. So you have your maps, your deployment zones, and everything ready to go. Now, what is missing? Well, I was digging through the box and I was thinking to myself, well, this is all great, but how do I assemble it? How do I put it together? And I looked and I looked and I looked, and I couldn't see any instructions anywhere on what to put together. I thought to myself, I suppose I could just go by what's on the back of the box. But there is indeed a set of instructions, but they're online, and you've got to look for it. Okay, so I'm going to point out to you now, in this introduction page, okay, I skipped past it, if I'm honest, because I wanted to get into the meat of the thing. But right here, it says all ship assembly guides can be found here. And then they have a link to all of the assembly guides. I'm not a fan, I've got to say. I think that the assembly guides should go into the box, especially on a 2-player starter set. This is something that me and a friend are cracking open. I can see in my younger days of sitting at the kitchen table with a pair of clippers and a pot of glue and getting stuck into this. Yes, I suppose there is some efficiency, and you can correct errors and things like that by having it online. But at the very least, that should have been a separate page at the top saying, here's where you go for your assembly instructions, if you don't put the assembly instructions in the box itself. So that would be one of the, at first glance, one of the big things that I would hope that they'll consider changing going forward, because It's an introductory box. It's there to introduce people to the game. And step one is putting the stuff together. So it's a crucial, crucial step. But they do exist. So remember, if you pick up the box and you're looking for them, where to find them is in the front page of the little campaign booklet. Right. That is a first look at the hunt for the Prometheus. I'm going to go and get stuck into actually clipping and assembling some of these so as I can get a game of this on. Heck, I might even challenge Ben to a post-lockdown battle on my gaming table that I built myself, and I put my blue mat on it. I'm all ready. Ben, I'm challenging you.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
So, for the news this week, we start off with looking back at the previews from last weekend from Games Workshop. Now, we showed a bunch of this stuff over on the weekend anyway. I put together some news stories about everything that's been brought out, but just to catch everybody up, the big new announcement for them, it wasn't Mordheim, it wasn't Warhammer the Old World, and it wasn't Battlestar Galactica. But
and it wasn't bloody Kroot either.
And it wasn't Kroot. No.
Damn.
It's going to be a meme. But what it was a return to Warhammer Quest in a fantasy setting. Now, we have seen Warhammer Quest being done as part of the Silver Tower and Shadows of a Hammerhall, right? Which were okay, which were cool. You know, I quite enjoyed them, played through them, sort of all of them solo, and it was quite fun. But then they moved on to Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress, which was the sci-fi version of things. They tweaked some of the mechanics. Meant to be a pretty good game.
Yeah.
And they expanded that out with like 3 or 4 expansions. That was really cool. But they've come to the end and told that story. Now what they're doing is they're returning to the Mortal Realms and telling a story as part of Warhammer Quest Cursed City. So this is a game where you're going to be playing as a band of adventurers from across the spectrum of characters within the Mortal Realms who are heading to the cursed city of Ulfenkarn in order to deal with a terrible warlord known as the Wolf, which from the sort of artwork we've seen in this kind of teaser trailer, we're assuming he's going to be kind of like a vampire lord maybe, who has managed to summon all of the sort of deathly creatures of the city to his cause in order to make it his own domain. So think a little bit sort of like the vampire counts in Sylvania back in the day in sort of like Warhammer Fantasy Warhammer Fantasy and that kind of thing.
This guy's prepared. Look at that stake. He is taking no chances. Look at these other stakes.
So this is one of the main characters you can play as, called Jelson Darroch, who is a witch hunter, for want of a better word, from the Temple of Azir. However, he was kicked out of the Temple of Azir for being too zealous. You
can't be too good a witch hunter.
Exactly. He comes with a massive rifle, as you can see over his shoulder, that fires underslung stakes, which is pretty cool. Fun fact about the stakes, they are carved from the wood of trees from the realm of Ashki, which is the realm of fire. So when they hit undead creatures, they burst into flame, which is pretty cool.
Thank goodness there was a bit more to that, because when you went, they're carved from wood of trees, I was going to go, well, duh, of course they are. He even has a mallet for smashing stakes into vampires when he needs to get rid of them that way. And he also has that big freaking sword on his back as well, which is very, very cool and puts me in mind of classic witch hunter sort of like styles from Warhammer Fantasy. And you could even maybe use this in some sci-fi. If you wanted to do a little bit of tweaking here and there, you could use it as a character in Warhammer 40k as well, I think. That'd be pretty cool.
It wouldn't need much tweaking to bring him up to Rogue Trader / Inquisitor level, really, would it? Yeah. Just leave him as is, to be brutally honest.
Yeah, that's right. Those stakes would make short work of a new Kroot army if it ever came out.
Would have. And that's why you won't see
them.
They are mighty. Because anybody who can be dealt with by a pointed stick is not worthy of getting a new box set. Hence, no Kroot.
Yeah. The Jelson Darroch is going to be going up against fiends like Gorslav the Gravekeeper here, who is one of the first sort of evil villains that has been previewed for Warhammer Quest Cursed City. And this kind of flows into the idea that the wolf, this lord of the Cursed City, has sort of twisted all of its inhabitants to his cause, and he used all these undead minions in order to raise more people from their graves to fight for him in the realm of Shaiish. I'm getting some very, very big sort of like
Guillermo del Toro.
Yes, Guillermo del Toro, Bloodborne style vibes to this.
The whole Pan's Labyrinth look.
Yes, very much so. And I really, really like this guy. I love the idea that the shovel, the spade, is an axe, as well as being obviously a practical item. And then he has those grave coffin hooks for ripping open the coffin so that he can free the zombies from within in them as well. It's very, very cool. And this is one of these sets. At the start of this year, I said to myself that I probably wouldn't dive into anything more Games Workshop. But I'm slowly convincing myself that Curse City could possibly be a box game to pick up, mainly because it'll all be self-contained. I'll only have to paint a certain amount of miniatures. And because it's a board game, I'm more inclined to play it.
No pictures of the box set yet then?
No. This was a very early preview of this, but more's going to be revealed over the coming months, which is pretty cool. So yeah.
Sweet. But they didn't stop at that. There was a deluge
Indeed.
of stuff this week.
There was. So we've got a couple more sort of previews for things like the Lumineth Realm Lords and that kind of thing, but we'll come back to those nearer the time that they're being released. One of the big things that they did show off was, I love that. So one of the things that they did talk about, however, was a new Kill Team expansion box, which is coming out called Pariah Nexus. So Pariah Nexus is going to be the next box you can pick up. That will be effectively a way for you to dive in and start playing Kill Team without too much bother. You could use it as effectively a starter set for all intents and purposes. But this comes with a whole bunch of new Space Marine and Necron models for you to use in building up your armies beyond Kill Team as well. So within this, you're going to get the new Captain model who comes with his master-crafted bolter, the heavy bolt rifle there. You've also got the heavy intercessors. So these are intercessors who are rocking around in like Gravis mark armor, I want to say it is. So these guys don't have 2 wounds. They have 3 wounds. So as they pointed out in the preview, all that anti-Space Marine weaponry that your Xenos forces have will possibly need an upgrade. But yeah, they come with some pretty badass looking weapons. And I do particularly like the dude carrying the heavy bolter. I think that guy is pretty amazing. It's very cool.
Yeah. Got to get me some Sharpies for coloring these gold shoulder pad rims and stuff. Yeah. I think I was watching, was it Lucas Apes? I think it was on YouTube. He was using gold Sharpies for drawing in like Aquilas and stuff like that. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to have to give that a go.
Yeah. As well as the new Captain and the Heavy Intercessors for the Space Marine side of things, we've also got some new models for the Necrons. So one of the actual new models is the Chronomancer here, as you can see. So this is the Necron who has gone full Bruce Forsyth, as a lot of people said in the comments, where he's got quite the chin. And as you might imagine with the name Chronomancer, he's all about twisting and manipulating time. Alongside the Chronomancer, we also have the return of some classic Necrons with a new skin, quite literally, with the idea of the flayed ones being introduced once more back into the mix. If you have the new codexes for both the Space Marines and the Necrons, these are already in there. This just means that you've now got miniatures to go alongside them, which is pretty cool.
Plastic flayed ones.
Plastic flayed ones.
Because the metal ones, God, no. The metal ones are such a pain.
Or the fine cast ones. But yeah, very, very cool indeed. All of these are going to be available separately later on down the line. But if you do want to pick them up earlier, then you will get them as part of the Pariah Nexus set, as you can see here.
Anything else in the video?
They do show off a bunch of the terrain as well. So in this, you actually get a selection of Necron tomb complex terrain because the whole of this sort of Pariah Nexus scenario setup takes place in one of these tomb complexes where you're fighting. So if you want to build up some more interior locations, then you can definitely do that. I think this is a pretty cool thing for those people that have dived in and are picking up Space Marine armies and sort of like started in maybe at this edition, because this kind of gives you another avenue into that, which is pretty cool. The other thing that was showed off, and this was the first preview from Saturday, is this new Paragon Warsuit for the Adeptus Sororitas. So the Adeptus Sororitas, the battle sisters, sister battle, have obviously been around for a very long, long time, but they don't tend to get new stuff, whereas this is a new piece of kit for them to use called the Paragon Warsuit. Now, obviously, Adeptus Sororitas... Sorry?
They don't tend to get new stuff, but even they're getting new stuff.
Yes, of course.
And the Kroot still haven't got new stuff.
No. I'm so sorry.
You know, I'm not going to let this go ever.
I know.
We're all well aware of
It is now a
that.
bee in my bonnet.
So these are warsuits that have been designed to allow the Sisters of Battle to carry bigger weapons into battle, effectively. Think of them as kind of like a little bit of a mix between the sort of over-the-top look of things like the Penitent Engine and also the sort of Grey Knights warsuit that they use as well. The Dread Knight, yeah. So it's kind of like in that style. So.
Well, they do seem to be smaller, more sort of Sentinel-sized 3-man squads rather than the Dread Knight being a big stompy.
Yeah, I think a Battle Sister is like halfway up to one of these.
Yeah,
they do show off some like previews of the scale in here. I think.
I don't know about these. They're a bit weird looking.
But then again, everything in 40k is weird.
Yeah, but they're weird looking because look, like her legs come down and her foot would be there where the knee is.
Mm-hmm.
So she just looks like a lady with giant legs. It's weird.
Anyone who's watched the new Resident Evil trailers, shout out to you people who like tall ladies. There you go. But there we go. Anyway, moving on from that and that weird thing.
I like everything else. It's just the legs is weirding me out. Just giant legs.
Yeah. I mean, I quite like the sort of over-the-top nature of them. I think it's pretty cool. You know, like basically walking cathedrals again, which is pretty neat and sort of fits with their theme. Yeah.
Anybody who plays Infinity will have seen plenty of these before, because that's more or less what a tag is.
Well, yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah, very true. They did also point out that even though that lady there does have her head out, there are helmet options. So if you don't want to get shot in the bonds, then you do have ways to get around that.
Nobody wants to get shot.
She's perfectly fine. There's so much hair gel in that. There's nothing going to penetrate that hair.
Very true. Very true. Sticking with the idea of the grim dark future, we also got a preview of what's coming up for pre-order this weekend, and then is released next weekend. So for those people who want to go out hunting down traitors, you can now pick up a new Codex supplement for the Dark Angels. So the Dark Angels, sans Lionel Johnson, still are going to be heading out from the Rock in order to hunt down the traitors to their chapter.
It's only a matter of time.
Yes, I'm sure he will be coming in a wheelchair or not. Who knows? But he'll be coming down the line. I'm sure he will. But this is going to be a new codex that is packed to the gills, as they often say, with rules and supplementary bits and pieces for you to sort of make a more bespoke Dark Angels force. And this comes out alongside a new combat patrol set, which is the way that they're kind of going at the moment with these. So this is a set that is designed specifically to meet the kind of power points of a combat patrol in the game. So if you wanted to put together something quickly and just get playing straight away, this is a way to do that. You get the Interrogator Chaplain in there, you get your Primaris Marines, you get your Floaty Boys. That's not their real name, but that's the way I'm going to call them. And then you've also got the Dreadnought as well in there too, which is pretty cool. So yeah, if you like the Dark Angels, they are awesome. I mean, they're big warrior monks for the most part, which is pretty cool. So go and check those out and see what you think.
Some fans of the Ravenwing and Death Company will be dying to get their hands on that, so they can actually go back to fielding proper filth lists as opposed to just regular filth lists.
Exactly.
Which are not as much fun.
Yeah. Alongside the combat patrol, there was also the release of a bunch of new kits for both the Space Marines and the Necrons. So the Blade Guard veterans are going to be coming, and this is meant to be possibly one of the most in-depth kits that they've ever done for the Space Marines. So there are lots and lots and lots of choices in here for you to make and arm your Space Marines in different ways. And alongside those, we're also going to get these, which are the Primaris Eradicators. So if you're in the need to sort of burn your way through the hull of an enemy tank and just turn things into slag, this is basically the way to go. They're all carrying melter weapons, and you've also got the classic multi-melter in there as well, which is pretty cool. On the vehicle front, they're also going to be releasing a kit that can be designed in 3 variants for the Storm Speeder. So this is the new Primaris version, effectively, of the Land Speeder that has been a mainstay of the Space Marines for a very long time. And this will come in 3 variants, so you can get different flavors. You can get kills infantry very well, kills tanks very well, does a bit of both. So there, some nice options there for people who want to play as Space Marines. And finally, we also have another character for the Necrons. So this is the Psychomancer, not Psychomantis from Metal Gear, Psychomancer. And this is a new character that you can add into your army. And as you might imagine by the name, this fellow likes to mess around with psychic abilities and making things really, really damn hard for your enemy psychers on the tabletop, which is pretty cool. Another interesting model that will not survive a carrier case, but there you go.
My favorite bit has to be the sticky out pinky.
Yeah. It is very good.
His main attack is to force people to experience the movie Pixels. So that's what's going on there. Like, the worst, most devastating weapon in the 40k universe.
It truly
You
is.
will sit down and suffer. Yeah.
I survived it once, never again.
But yeah, loads of new stuff coming out now for Warhammer 40,000 and in the future. And of course, don't forget that Cursed City is going to be very, very cool. And hopefully we'll see more stuff about that in the coming weeks. So that'd be nice. Yeah.
Sweet. What's next there, Ben?
Moving on from the grim, dark future and that sci-fi world, we're looking to an equally terrifying world where more things are trying to kill you. So anyone and has loved Aliens recently has been playing the board game Aliens Another Glorious Day in the Core.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you haven't, Lloyd.
No, I haven't.
Else has.
Your brother has.
Warren has. Yeah.
Well,
But very awesome game, very cool, fits the theme of the Alien movies really, really nicely. And one of the things that came in the box for that were a bunch of plastic miniatures. Well, Gale Force 9 have said, hey, you know what? You can have more miniatures.
yeah. Yeah.
And so what they've done is that they've released all of the different sets as individual miniature packs, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you've got the Heroes of Hadley's Hope, which
Too
is those
bad
ones you
they
see
didn't
there.
release big pics.
Well, you can't get everything, unfortunately. I did try my hardest, but unfortunately, no big pigs. You've also got the Sulaco Survivors in there as well. So you've got the Get Away From Her, You Bitch expansion stuff, which is pretty cool. You've also got sets for the Xenomorphs. So you've got Alien Warriors and the Alien Queen, if you want to throw those into your games on the tabletop. And then they've also released, and they didn't have to do this, but it's pretty cool, they've also released the Assets and Hazards Terrain Pack as well.
Yeah.
So basically, what Gale Force 9 are saying is if you needed more miniatures for the board game, cool, buy some more. But you could also use these for tabletop gaming. So if there's some sci-fi games out there that you want to dive into and play, maybe check out these boxes and use them as a variant for it, which would be pretty awesome.
I think that's exactly what they were saying.
Yeah.
And the miniatures are really, really nice. They're hard plastic. So obviously, if anybody hasn't seen any of the reviews for them yet, they're not spun. They are hard plastic sprues. There is a bit of posability on the Xenomorphs. They mostly come with heads are interchangeable and tails are ball socket.
Cool.
And there's a couple of different variations. And then the arms are flat, flush fit. But there's a couple of different, I think you actually get spare arms on the sprues if memory serves, and some spare heads as well.
Oh, yeah, because
So
if there's spare arms, you can have them coming up through gratings and heads poking out through walls. That'd be cool.
Because some of the mouths are opening, doing the multiple little baby mouths look, and some are closed. So if you don't want to have those on, you have enough to do, I think, all with or all without. So there are options, which is nice.
Cool.
It's not a full multi-part, multi-pose kit, but it's not for a board game thing. It's not kicking the bum off.
Yeah.
And miniatures, the heroes rather, are all very easy to put together and look superb. So really nice set. I'm very impressed that they've done that.
Yeah, it's a really nice sort of thing for them to do, I think. A lot of people really like Aliens and would really like the idea to play these games on the tabletop in a more war game style. So definitely do that and play around with your Marines and stuff, which is pretty cool.
I mean, excellent if somebody wants to get into something like, I don't know, Stargrave.
Exactly, yeah.
want to go out there and fight some Xenomorphs on the fringe.
Yeah. Moving on from that, we're going to be talking about and taking a journey into the world of modern warfare on the tabletop. So the guys over at Spectre Operations have now released their new Delta Assault Squad, So this is a new set of miniatures you'd use in their game Spectre operations, and also in other modern games if you wish to go down a different route. These are actually some of their first 3D sculpted miniatures for their collection. So they decided to go in a little bit of a different direction with these for this year, and brought out the 3D sculpting tools in order to make these. So
when you say 3D sculpting, they're still selling them as a mini, but the process of designing them has switched over to 3D.
Yes, so the design is still done. The design is done in 3D programs. They sell them as physical miniatures. Because they wanted to just sort of play around with all the new stuff that's around there, and I think they still have a lot of the qualities that you see in the hand sculpted miniatures from Spectre. Personally, which is very cool. There is at the core of this that assault squad itself that you can pick up and play around with, which comes with a bunch of Delta Force soldiers wearing their jeans, and a lot of them, which is very cool. But you also have a selection of specialists too.
What are these big keychain looking things?
I'm going to say it's stuff to do with a climbing kit.
Oh.
So it might be things to latch onto ropes and that kind of thing. Maybe.
Maybe.
Who knows? Maybe they're glow sticks for when they want to rave. But as well as that, you've also got a bunch of specialists. So you've got things like the commander there, and then you've also got things like a drone specialist, a drone operator, and a scout as well to throw into the mix as well. The cool thing about this that I really like is this kind of gives you a nice in for playing Spectre operations without having to go searching through their range. Because effectively what you could say is, I want to play as the quote-unquote good guys. Go and pick up this Delta Assault Squad. That's all you need to do to play as, the Americans or whatever. And then everyone else can just chuck a bunch of other stuff in there from like Middle Eastern troops and all that kind of stuff. And then just play out your games using those. You don't have to go much further, which is pretty cool.
Are these Desert Eagle guns with a really long barrel?
Maybe.
They look like they might be like Desert Eagles.
There may be machine pistols, or that just might be spare magazines hanging down underneath the pistol holster.
It's got a big. I think it's a Desert Eagle. Really big gun.
Are you just going to say it's a massive Desert Eagle, or like a revolver or something?
My missus, she loves really big guns.
Does she now?
Yeah, we were watching Batman from 1984, and it came to the bit where the Joker whipped out his massive gun, and she just like blown up. Look at the size of it! Look at it, Lloyd. Have you seen the size of his weapon? I'm like, yeah, I have seen the size of it. And she was so disappointed when he ran up the clock bell. A clock tower thing, and then didn't have it anymore. She's like, where did its big gun go? I'm not excited anymore.
Fired it once and then threw it away. It's a muzzle loading pistol. He only got one shot.
Cool.
Very cool stuff there from the guys at Spectre, and it'd be nice to see what they do in terms of the future and doing 3D sculpting and that kind of stuff. So yeah, very cool.
WizKids next time, Ben, is it?
Yeah. So next up, we're looking to what WizKids are doing for Dungeons and Dragons. Now, a lot of people will know of Critical Role and the world of Exandria that has been designed by Matt Mercer. God, all praise Matt Mercer. But he has recently obviously been running Campaign 2, which is set on the continent of Wildmount. And so what they have done is that they've teamed up with WizKids and, of course, Wizards of the Coast in order to make a official range of pre-painted Exandria miniatures for you to use in your games. So you'll be able to pick up a bunch of new character models and non-player characters for you to use in your games, alongside a selection of new monsters, which are all drawn from the sort of expanded monster manual of sort of options that Matt Mercer has put into the games of Critical Role. So if you've been watching the show for a really long time, and you like the way that he deals with a lot of the different monsters in there and that kind of quirky, weird element of things, a little bit Cthulhu as well, which is pretty cool, then you can definitely go and pick up all these boxes. Now, I will say that all the boxes at the moment are sold out because it's Critical Role related, so of course they are. But they should be coming back at some point in the future. Maybe check with your local game stores. But yeah.
All right, so there are more. All right, so you had a selection of one mini from each box.
Yes, I did. But this is they have a pre-order webpage, as you can see there, which is linked in the article, which takes you through to seeing a whole bunch of new characters and monsters that they're doing, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, as a lot of people are diving into D&D, I know obviously Jerry would would balk at the idea of using miniatures. But if you're into playing D&D and you like Critical Role and you're setting games within the world of Tal'Dorei or Wildmount, then this is a really nice set that they're doing for this. And they have been stepping up their game when it comes to the pre-paints recently. So I would assume they're going to be at the kind of quality that we're seeing from a lot of stuff to do with the X-Men and things they've been doing for HeroClix as well, which is cool.
Yeah, that'll be the main thing I'd like to see is how they actually look, because the renders look great, but it's how that actually transfers across to the physical product.
Yeah, obviously for a lot of people that have been using WizKids for a long time,
quality's not an issue.
Yeah, quality's not an issue. But if you do care about it that much, you could just respray it. You could spray them and repaint them.
Yeah, repaint them.
Which is cool. But So if you're into Critical Role and you want to dive into playing a lot more stuff on the tabletop with loads of miniatures of characters and monsters and that kind of thing, definitely go and check this out, or watch to see what your local gaming store's doing, and maybe hop on board and pre-order some of these. Which is pretty cool.
I look good with an off-the-shoulder coat.
Where were you? This dude here.
Look at the grey in that. Yep. Yeah. not too sure about the orange and yellow cummerbund type of thing going on there, but yeah, off the shoulder coat's a good look.
Yeah,
I should bring that back.
Very cool. Moving on from Critical Role, we're going to be diving into World War II because the folks at Plastic Soldier Company have released a new Platoon set for those people that want to dive in and play as the German Afrika Korps. So I believe we actually showed off the British not too long ago, but the Afrika Korps are now available as a Platoon set. These are all available in 20mm, which is the scale for Battle Group, and they've all come from the Adler Miniatures collection, but then redone and recast in Ultracast.
Sweet! So, I think I might have found my 20mm minis, because I've got a load of 20mm tanks back there, but I had no minis.
There you go. We've got a nice set here, and within this, you pretty much got everything you need to kind of get started as well. So it comes with HQ choices. You get all the NCOs.
How do you know this?
A bunch of rifle, because I've read things on the internet.
If I follow this through,
yeah. If you click through here, you'll see a rundown of what you get in the set.
Here we go. More picks.
There you go. So you're going to get HQ, NCOs, riflemen, and also LMG teams that are both posed sitting and firing, and also on the move as well, which is pretty cool. A nice sort of option for diving in and playing Battle Group.
What period is this? This mid-war or what?
Africa was, essentially mid-war, so sort of 42, 43.
I've got a couple of Stugs. I could squeeze them in. Could I squeeze Stugs into Africa?
Not many, and it depends on the type.
So I've got the wrong tanks.
It depends if you've got the
depends who you're playing.
The hunchback threes should be fun. Otherwise, go nuts.
Are they planning?
We're not going to worry too much.
Are they planning to do other periods then? Are they planning on moving through?
They've already done it, and this is nice to see the Afrika Korps coming, because the very first box set they released was late war Waffen SS.
Yes, yeah.
And then the very second box they released was mid-war British desert rats.
In the desert, yeah.
What? Who? Where? Why? And that threw me a curveball. So
have you got one of them there? Was that you flashing one?
I've got the Waffen SS.
We have all the new boxes.
Do we have an unboxing in the pipeline for this stuff?
There's an unboxing coming up for this, yeah.
Sweet.
So it's nice that they've now got two opposing boxes for the same time period in theatre. I imagine they're just going to keep expanding out from there.
Maybe we'll see Americans done as the other set for the late war, maybe.
Oh, that'd be interesting, yeah.
If Adler Miniatures do Americans,
they do. Oh, don't worry. Adler have them covered. So, fantastic stuff from PSC. Especially, like say, you can get the tanks, you can get all the vehicles from them already as hard plastic kits. It was just then sourcing the infantry to go with it. So, great to see those.
Oh, you mean like this sort of thing? Oh,
yes, that sort of thing. That is the exact sort of thing that you were looking for. You're going to get into Battle Group then? I'm
going to get into painting my minis next year.
All right, well, that's good.
Because I got
a target.
I got a few projects sitting about, so I don't know if I have time to paint.
Let's not forget the massive stuff coming in soon as well, which we talked about on XLBS.
Yeah. You're missing out if you don't join us for a hobby time on XLBS. Right, chappies. Last news item then is
Yes. So the last news item is Heavens to Betsy, a board game.
What?
So this is a game that sort of caught my eye last year when it was announced by FFG, and it should be coming out, fingers crossed, toes crossed because of COVID, sort of late January, early February, so around nowish. This is X-Men Mutant Insurrection, which is a new dice game that's coming out from them. So for anyone who has played Elder Sign and stuff like that back in the day,
I thought you said it was a board. It's
a board game. Yeah. So for anyone who has played things like Elder Sign back in the day by FFG, this may be familiar to you. The idea is that it's a fully cooperative experience where you're playing as the X-Men. So Cyclops, Wolverine, Storm, Jubilee, Beast, and a whole bunch of others. You know, you've got Gambit and Iceman in there as well. And you're going to be going up against enemies like Magneto and Dark Phoenix. And it's all based on the idea of collecting the dice for the different characters, choosing the sort of encounters that you want to deal with, and then rolling dice and mitigating bad luck and that kind of thing in order to defeat these different encounters, and then working your way up towards the big bad at the very, very end. It seems like a really fun game that's designed sort of like to dive in and play in sort of between 45 minutes and an hour, or as I said in the news article, 45 miniatures and an hour, because I just write the word miniatures all day. But there we go. It looks really nice. I really like the style of the art they've done for it. I think all the components look really good, but then again, it is FFG. You get your own little cardboard Blackbird to put your X-Men in, which is amazing.
Go X-Jet, go.
Yeah, and then you've also got all the little standees for the characters as well. As I say, this is a cooperative game, so there'll be a lot of kind of like tactical talk around the table. Hopefully not too much alpha gaming. Hopefully there's some bits and pieces in there to kind of fix that. But if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the game, you can watch the Let's Play that the guys at FFG did, running through the game and sort of talking through all the mechanics and that kind of thing.
This is a card game. This is not a board game.
It's a board game by
There's no
any other
board
name.
in any sense. Just that one little strip. Tiny.
Maybe it should be taken off Board Game Geek then. Who knows? No. Technically, it's classified as a dice game. So there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah. Looks really cool. If you like X-Men and you don't want to, paint miniatures or whatever, this might be a fun thing to dive into and play.
You know what's funny though? Because of the pandemic, these people that are playing it all look like they're part of the X-Men.
They do. Yeah.
Is it required that you have to hum the theme tune to the cartoon when you're playing it over and over
all
again?
the time?
I've been trying to remember it, but that's it.
As you open the box, you got to do it.
And now everybody's got that stuck in their head.
Oh man, that was a good cartoon.
Because I was trying to remember it, and all I could think of was the Transformers theme, and now I can't even think of that. You've pushed it out of my brain.
And if that has made you really, really want to go and watch some X-Men stuff, all of that cartoon series is on Disney Plus. So go and watch it.
Yeah, so that wraps up the news. We're going to get stuck into a Warm Meets Matt now, I believe. What's he going to be showing us? Fellas? Oh, are you excited?
Yeah, he's going to be diving in and putting together a little bit of a look at what's new from Loke BattleMats.
Right, I'm in my new zone. Oh, I get to do a Warren Meets Matt. It's been too long. We are going to have a look today at the Towns and Taverns big books of BattleMats. It's a 2-volume set from Loke BattleMats, available now. So it comes in a slipcase. So once you've extracted them from the slipcase, you get Volume 1 and Volume 2. If you are into your RPGs, these are an absolute genius idea. So what they have is they have a whole selection of different maps and play areas throughout the book. And the beauty of the actual big book set is that they have compatibility between the two books. So you're not just playing on a 2x1 surface. Whenever you rearrange them, you're ending up playing on a 2x2. So for any purists or anything that's completely out there, you have your blank grid, and then you immediately start to get stuck in to some beautiful textures. So As you can see, you have your, there's a compatibility here in terms of the actual design, and you have a great degree of flexibility in how you actually arrange the books as well. So you could have, you're out in this area and then going into a slightly more densely populated area. What I particularly like about these sets is just the minute attention to detail, and in particular, the lovely lighting effects. So if we have a look here at the water well, you get this lovely kind of water wheel here, but it's these little lighting effects of the light pouring in through the window. And I know it's small detail, but here you can see it here, and you can actually see the frame structure within the glass of the window. And yeah, as I said, it's a small detail, but it's little bits like that that just bring a warmth to the mat and to the play space. And I think it just adds some really, really nice detail to it. So let's have a flick through and see what else is in here. So another stone surface. So you can see already how the potential for linked adventures throughout a campaign. And you know, this one's great. So here you have a kind of like a wooden fort kind of thing. You could do all kinds of adventures inside a wooden fort. And here you have it in beautiful detail in the shape of 2 books. So you're not carrying a bunch of terrain or anything around with you. This one here is one of my personal favorites, okay? Because I can totally see playing that in this fashion, where it's like 4x1 and you have your players working along the dock side. However, equally, if we wanted, we could just take it and go like that. And then it's a slightly more kind of lagoon kind of approach. Your minis are just going to pop on it. It works beautiful with your standard 28mm minis. I've brought in a plague doctor because I think it's perfect for the times that we're in. So we have our plague doctor here and our mad butcher. These are from the Carnivale range. And as you can see, they just settle in beautifully. As many of you all know, I like to play my fantasy games at 15mm. So I've pulled a few of my little minis, and here we have a band of orcs coming off. And you can see the scale-wise, it is still just absolutely perfect. If anything, I even prefer it dropping down to the 15mm scale. I just think it makes everything look that little bit bigger and a little bit more epic. Check out that boat with that orc in it. Tell me that's not amazing. That is just so cool. So there we have the battle mats. So if I flip this around, we can have a look through, just a quick flick through some of the other mats that are there. So we have a slightly more dense kind of urban town environment into some of the larger rooms and set pieces. Cool tavern area here. You've got your tables and chairs, you've got your bar area, and most importantly, your legendary steps, which are going to take you down to a dungeon of some sort, no doubt. More little town areas. This could easily be a guild for magicians and wizards. So there's lots of lovely little narrative details to trigger your own kind of thoughts. Here we start to see some gardens. So, you know, outside of a palace. Some of the more kind of flexible stone areas. So if you had some of your own walls and things, you could just set them down on top of that. Next up, Market Square. and then into palace level of interiors now, where you've got these really ornate looking spaces. Remember I talked about getting down those steps from the bar? Well, you go down those steps from the bar and you go into the bar cellar area. So here you've got all of your barrels and your bits and pieces, and then out and into a dungeon, baby. Which, you know, we've all been there, we've all done it. More of your palace area. So here you have some of the kind of like the wine cellar areas here. This is another kind of nice bar area with the little alcoves where you and your adventurers can be sitting planning what your next move is in your quest for glory. Down into a kind of, I don't know, I kind of see this as kind of like, it feels a wee bit like almost graveyardy to me. And then castle. So you've got your castle walls, castle gate, more defensive areas here. A nice mix in this book, a really nice mix. Beautiful exteriors and interiors, and just so much flexibility that you can use. One of the interesting additional ranges that Loke do, and they've got that coming out at this point as well, are these. These are genius. So in this selection, we have magic effects, town trimmings, and war and siege. They are reusable stickers. So they're kind of like vinyl pieces that you can peel off, pop onto your battle mat to use as a magic effect. So if you're a wizard, you're doing a massive magic fireball, you can just peel off the fireball. Where's the effect taking place? The effect is taking place there. And bang, you have it. If you want to open a pit of doom, you can. So we can peel off this maw. And again, your party has maybe sprung a trap. And boom. There you have it. A tentacle maw has erupted out of the ground. So as you can see, there are a ton of little magical effects and things that you can add to your games. Whenever you're finished with them, they just pop right back where you had them. So it can be a little bit fiddly at times, but you pick it up, pop it back on, put it in your folder, bang, ready for the next time. So that's the magic effects. Let's have a look at the town trimmings. We have some rooftops, which will close off some of those buildings, which could be interesting for concealment purposes. Or if you wanted to use one of the big blank kind of town square areas and lay out your own buildings, you could have almost like a parkour kind of a level where they're jumping from rooftop to rooftop. Here we also have various walls, doors, statues, more interiors for dressing out bars, and there's carts and beds. So you can convert pretty much anything into anything. And it's the design is exactly of the same kind of style and feel as the rest of the book. So it just fits in lovely. And then one of my personal favorites, I've loved this one, is the War and Siege. Because I personally think that RPGing through a war zone is a really interesting experience. So here you have your tents for your encampment, more kind of barricades of different styles, flaming trebuchet, dead bodies, through to some ruins, more barricades, ruined cart, fallen statues. And then if you want to start building a little bit of infrastructure, if you're trying to build up some defensive areas of your own, you have some towers and battlement kind of options here. And then finally, some more kind of objective-y kind of stuff. So you have ladders that you can use to show entry points up onto the battlements. And then you have siege towers, battering rams, and cannons. Right, the last little bit is the smallest in the set, but it's so cute, you have to see it. And this is the little book of BattleMats. So if you and your buddies like to meet up ad hoc, not easy during these times, but you don't have a lot of space to carry stuff, there's a handy little book right there. Exactly the same quality as the big book, but lots of little self-contained miniature areas that you can use for encounters. So if, for example, you're not, you're more of a play it in the mind kind of GM until you actually get to an encounter, and then you want to demonstrate the encounter, maybe with some miniatures or on a map, this is perfect for that, because it has nice, small, enclosed spaces which are just the right size. So let me put a 15 mil guy down so as you can see him. If I take them off and pop in my 28s, tons of room for some great encounters. Right, love this stuff. Absolutely massive fan of the Loke BattleMats big books, and there is another really, really useful set.
Did you win one of our prizes? Find out on our prize claim center over at OnTableTop.com. Here we list all our previous prizes and those who have won. If you see your username, fill out the form to claim your prize. All prizes must be claimed within 30 days. Okay, peeps, to round out the show, we're going to be taking our usual look at some Kickstarters. I believe we have 2 to look at this week, Ben?
Yes, we do. And we're kicking things off with a look at what Privateer Press has been doing, because they have launched their Kickstarter for the new Iron Kingdoms Requiem set of books that are going to be taking us back into the realm of Immoren and playing out games and role-playing adventures as the characters from the likes of War Machine and Hordes.
Well funded.
It is well funded. It was funded very, very quickly indeed when this kicked off. So a little bit, something that's a little bit different here is that Iron Kingdoms has always had its own system anyway. But what they've done with this campaign is that they've decided to use the 5th edition rules. Obviously, will be familiar to people that play Dungeons and Dragons as the basis for, or they call it the mechanical basis for everything that comes as part of this set. So their new core campaign setting guide, which is available as part of this campaign alongside 2 other books, will come with all of the rules with a 5e flavor for making these Warhammer Horde style characters. So you're going to get all the stuff in there for playing as, your standard humans, your Rulic dwarves, your troll bloods, all that kind of thing. You're going to have all that access to all that. On top of those, you're also going to get very distinct classes that are based on the realm of Immoren as well. So if you want to play a gun mage, if you want to play a warcaster who has a warjack by her side, then you can do that as well, which is pretty cool. If you want to just be walking around in a massive, huge steam-powered suit or something. I
don't want to do any of that. I just want to play as this massive train. Look at that. That's awesome.
If you wanted to be in charge of a train, I'm sure you could be. But yeah, so that sort of brings me on quite nicely onto the fact that, as well as all the stuff to do making characters and all sort of like the classes and stuff they can be, there's also a huge amount of work that's gone into making all of the additional equipment, all the feats and the skills and the backgrounds that you can use in order to make your characters fit into the world of Immoren and the Iron Kingdoms. It's also set after some of the sort of larger stuff that's been happening within the actual war game itself. So it's all to do with sort of like the emergence of demonic hordes and all that kind of thing as well, which is pretty cool. They've moved the story on, which is nice. On top of the campaign setting guide, there's also, and you can see one of them demonstrated here, the Monsternomicon, which comes with a whole bunch of monsters, 80 plus, in fact, I believe at the moment, that are taken from the world of Wormhordes. So if you wanted to find out what it was like to fight a big, huge, monstrous troll, then you can do that. If you wanted to see what it was like to fight some of the Archons, you can do that as well. So again, they've really gone to the effort of making sure that you're not just fighting orcs and kobolds, you're fighting against things that are specifically from the world of the Iron Kingdom, which is really cool. The third book, as you can see here, is The Legend of Witchfire, which is a campaign for you to play through from level 1 through to level 4. It's based on an old story from the Iron Kingdoms that was told a couple of years ago when the role-playing game first came out. But it's been revamped and retweaked in order for you to play through a new version of The Legend of the Witchfire as part of this 5th edition rule set. On top of the 3 books, they're also going to be doing a bunch of stretch goals and all kinds of things like that. So if you wanted to dive in and pick up things like a GM screen, you can do that. And all of the stretch goals are kind of focused towards upgrading and updating the stuff that already exists. So they've included things like map tiles and things that you can use. They're adding new monsters into the Monsternomicon based on people unlocking them. So, for example, you've got the Death Jack there has been unlocked. That will now be added into the Monsternomicon as a creature, which is pretty cool. And a bunch of other things like tokens and all kinds of stuff like that, which is nice. You can also buy different variants of the set of 3, if you know what I mean. So you can buy multiple copies of the campaign guide if you want to buy that to sort of like share it with your friends and all that kind of stuff as well, which is nice. And they're actually also holding things like polls where they decide what's going to be the artwork on the front cover of the screen and all that kind of thing as well, which is really nice. This sounds really cool, and we talked about this a little bit last week, or maybe it was the week before, but like, you know, having bespoke rules versus a universal rule system. And I was actually thinking about this in terms of, you know, the Iron Kingdoms and Requiem, and this one that they've done here as part of this Kickstarter campaign. I genuinely think that while obviously the Iron Kingdoms has its own flavor to it, I think the 5th edition rule set will be very, very, very good for this. I think it's a good match because it has that kind of fantasy but over the top feel to it, which again Dungeons & Dragons really has. Obviously you can tailor things to match how you like, but I think this is going to be a really good fit, and it should mean that maybe you'll get a lot more of your friends that maybe play War Machine and Hordes to come over and do some role playing, which would be pretty awesome, with a system that is very, very easy to dive into and very accessible.
It could be, and I'm looking at these tiles here and I'm wondering, could we use this with the Loki BattleMat stuff we just looked at? You
could definitely use it with the Loki BattleMat stuff that we just looked at. Definitely.
I was looking at this Kickstarter and thinking the other way around, Ben, because there are people who specifically just troll Kickstarter for 5th edition stuff.
Oh, yes, true.
Who probably know nothing about the Iron Kingdoms or about Wormhordes as a system. So this could even, I imagine they're going to be catching more people than just the original sort of Iron Kingdom fans because of this, simply because it is through 5th ed. So they may even end up dropping across into the miniatures game side of things.
It's definitely a side of things, because I know obviously D&D's had this resurgence over maybe the last 3-4 years or something, and it's kind of like reached its peak now. And I think a lot of people are looking beyond just core D&D to play different styles of it. And obviously Iron Kingdoms and MRN has a very, very different feel. I mean, for one, you can play as big monstrous things like Trollkin, for example, which is really cool. So, and they all have their own distinct characters and backstories and all that kind of thing, which has been fleshed out by years of them making Warmahordes, basically. So,
speaking of backstory, let's see what they've got in this vid.
They've got horses.
Because the artwork and stuff that they've done for this game, I think I've said it numerous times, is a standout for me. I think some of the best artwork in the industry has come out for War Machine and Hordes.
I think that's definitely a massive plus in their column. People can like or dislike the Warmer Hordes rules and that kind of thing, but I think one of the things you can't sort of get away from is how good a lot of their story writing and their artwork is. I think, as you were saying, Lloyd, it's really evocative, and it kind of feeds into that heavy metal combat kind of thing that they sort of run with, where it's kind of like big and over the top, as we were saying earlier. So yeah, very cool.
Sweet. Well, what's that got? 13 days left.
Yep. So it's around a 2-week campaign. So if you want to dive in and check this out, definitely go and see what you think. Looks very cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's up next, gents?
So next up is something that I've basically picked just to troll Jerry, really. So this is the Dungeon Masters Kickstarter from Nightmare Games, where they are working with renowned sculptor, I think we can probably say now, Boris Wolozin, on a range of 30 mil-ish, as they say, so 28 to 32, basically.
Yeah.
Heroic miniatures for you to use in your dungeon crawls.
Yeah, you could even use them in what we've just looked at, the Iron Kingdom's Requiem stuff.
You probably could, actually, especially some of the evil ones. Yeah,
the Legends of the Witchfire, for example.
Yeah,
that could tie in quite well there, couldn't it? I mean, it looks nice.
Skeletal champions. Yeah,
everybody likes a lich.
Yeah.
What did I say?
So they've done a set of 8 miniatures. So they've done 4 heroes, which are broken down into kind of like a warrior from the far country, a barbarian, an Amazonian, and a wizard, going up against a lich and 3 of their skeletal champions that they've summoned from beyond the grave. And these would obviously be a very, very good fit for those people that want to dive in and play maybe a kind of retro-themed D&D adventure that kind of harks back to the artwork of old that you may have seen on front of Dragon magazine and that kind of stuff. And I would imagine that was also probably a massive influence on what Boris has done here anyway, because he does like his old school artwork.
It really does.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, the hero wizard is not dissimilar from Boris himself, to be brutally honest.
Yeah, that's very true. Yes.
Self-portrait.
Yeah.
But I absolutely adore these. And I would say you're a terrible man for showing them to me, except I'd seen the greens when he was working on them last year, and I've been keeping half an eye, and then this launched without me noticing, the cheeky young whelps. So I've gone ahead and backed it.
Exactly. Ben's a terrible man.
Fish bite hooks. But you can also pick up some other things that Boris has done.
Wait. We have to go into full bore on that story. Like, we're getting ready to film this segment, and Jay's like, "Oh, hold on a minute, I'm just backing a Kickstarter." I'm like, "Oh, what's Kickstarter is that?" "Oh, flipping Ben's."
What can I say?
You know,
it's my superpower.
It's not a bad thing. It'll match in quite nicely with a lot of the other stuff Boris has done from other companies that I've also bought.
That's true.
Because, I'm like that. Yeah. But yeah, the fact that you can grab some of the other stuff that he's done for them in the Boris Blast in the past through this is quite nice as well, because there is some wacky things in there. Just goes to show just how, I'm going to say demented. I mean it lovingly, Boris, but demented he is. The Beasts of Malice and the Greater Beasts of Malice are particularly unnerving. And I think he eats too much cheese before bed. Be my medical opinion on that one. I'm not a doctor, but I watch a lot of House.
This guy here was torturing me in my dreams last night.
Okay, well, he would be.
Demon.
He would be. There's the hook horrors. I mean,
the hook horrors are amazing. I really like those.
Can you imagine waking up to find a nest of those on your windowsill? Just burn the house down.
I will also point out that these miniatures are available in both metal and resin. So whichever material you would prefer.
Oh, that's a hard choice.
They will share them out for you. So it's pretty awesome.
You've got some of this stuff. Is it the resin stuff you went for, Jerry, or the metals?
The Lichmere dungeon?
The Lichmere, I got all the resin. These ones I've ordered resin as well, because I know it keeps the details very well. Although I do like my metal. But I have in the past ordered for, I think, a set of stuff he did for Westphalia came in metal and resin, and I ordered one set of each so I could compare and contrast for my own personal amusement, just so I knew personally myself. You do need to, but they're a stunning set of miniatures, and they'll match up quite nicely with the Lichmere heroes as well, because I was looking at that. So yeah,
funded, and it'll have 6 days to go from when you're viewing this. Awesome stuff. You're skinting us again there, Ben.
I am
skinting us. And that brings us to the end of the show. Remember, peeps, to get your comments in, like the video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel for your chance to win that awesome new Dystopian Wars starter set. Come and join us in the XLBS show, which is out on Sunday. We're going to be talking about hobby stuff and maybe a few other topics. But until then, happy gaming.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong.
Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.